All right, people, we're here. I've got my phone with me. I don't care. We need it because we're going to make this one nice and quick. We're going to make this one fast and furious. Chris, I don't care if you haven't seen those goddamn movies. I'm going to make sure you watch them at some point because as despicable as they are, they are important facets of cinema, my friend. Action movies are important. Dude, are you kidding me? If fucking fans can raise, if fans can raise a fan campaign to make what we are about to talk about a thing, then the Fast and Furious movies are a staple of cinema, okay? Get with the program.
A staple of cinema?
My word, okay. A staple of cinema. I stand by those statements. It's Friday, first of all. Learn what day it is. Okay. It's Friday. Wow.
Hey,
good job, man.
It's quarantine, man.
It's quarantine time. People, this is
going tonight, huh?
People, normally what you would be seeing us on would be the Talkin TV podcast. Myself, the movie nerd, and that guy, the TV nerd. Yes, I'm actually pointing in the right direction. And Chris, we've got a little bit of a different thing going on here. We kind of made this a little spontaneous. I called you last night and I was like, Chris, this is a hot button topic. We need to talk about this. And I was like, we should do this as a podcast. And you were like, no, Dom, this is a hot button topic. We should do this now. And I'm like, you're 100% right. What was I thinking? And so, Chris, what are we talking about today at 10 p.m. on Friday, May 22nd, 2020? 5 months into this goddamn quarantine?
We are talking about this elusive, this much controversial, people couldn't shut up enough about hashtag release the Snyder cut.
Yeah, seriously.
We're talking about the Zack Snyder cut.
Yep.
Of the Justice League film.
Absolutely, people. it was rumored for so long. Most people didn't believe it was coming. I personally thought, okay, I'm sure there's a version of this that exists because, Zack Snyder already shot half the movie, and I'm pretty sure he had a decent amount other. So the only thing is, the difference between me and the rest of the internet that I would like to think is that I use common sense, which is something that I find that a majority of the rest of the internet is lacking, which I'm like, okay, well, see, the way basic filmmaking goes is that, directors don't have entire say over just making the whole cut of the movie. There's editing, there's pickups, there's what's the recording that actors have to do in studios in order to cover their lines. There's ADR, that has to be done. There's so much visual work that has to be done. At best, the whole thing that always baffled me about the Snyder cut is that people were saying, oh my God, there's this mystical cut that exists that has to be released. And I'm like, guys, at best, it's a bunch of uncomposed, unrendered, just the beginnings of pre-viz shots. Hey, what's up, Evan? Good to see you. Glad you were here. Glad you could make it. And and I was just so confused by that because I was like, What are you guys talking about? There's no other version, and what we have is the Justice League that we have. Get used to it. Yeah, it's whatever. I personally liked it better than Batman versus Superman. But needless to say, apparently that just wasn't enough to convince some fans. And now, Chris, we are here. We truly are in 2020 because if there's one thing that this year has proved, it is that apparently anything can happen now that, movies don't get made anymore because HBO is attempting to enter the streaming game with HBO Max. And apparently the vast amount of IP that they already had under their collar, consider the fact that they own Game of Thrones, Friends, and every DC superhero movie ever made, not to mention the countless amounts of other IP that they have. But apparently that wasn't enough Evan, I'm so glad that you showed up. But
the ultimate.
We'll get to that. But but apparently that wasn't enough because Warner Brothers was like, we need something big. We need something to really get people invested. We need something that's really going to justify that $14.99 a month as to why people should go with HBO Max instead of just keeping with HBO Now.
And that's the most expensive streaming service, right?
Is it? I'm
asking you. You're the guy.
Dude, of all the things that I know, numbers are not the thing I know.
It's $7.99. Netflix is
give it time.
Are they up to 10 now or something? Yeah,
Netflix is more than 10. Netflix is more than 10. I guarantee you Netflix is more than 10. I personally thought that Netflix was the most expensive because everybody kind of just already had it for so long and they weren't really looking at how much they were dropping on it a month. But yeah, the point being is that Warner Brothers needed a big button hot topic thing to get people invested and subscribe to their service. And they looked at the internet and they were like, there's a lot of people screaming about this Zack Snyder cut for Justice League. You know what? We already wasted enough money on this cut and lost enough money on it. Screw it. We're known for making colossal mistake after colossal mistake. Hell, we just spent the entire last decade just making fools of ourselves trying to replicate Marvel's formula. Screw it. Zack Snyder, you got our attention. Here's $20 million. Go make your 4-hour-long cut.
Yeah. I get, right? Like,
yeah,
are they just grasping at straws for that? Like you're more in, look, TV nerd right there. Okay. TV nerd. So Dom, I got to ask you, since you're a little more in tune with this sort of realm, I've seen the DC films, and hey, I've even defended them from time to time. I was about to say,
you've defended them almost to a disturbing amount, but
okay, it's like about the same as Netflix, whatever. And I guess Netflix.
Wait, what's HD Netflix though? Is that like different than like regular Netflix? I don't know what HD Netflix is.
Evan. I'll pull that back up. I don't know, Evan. If you want to clarify, that'd be good.
Evan, can you please clarify?
I feel like, I
disagree with that. See, that's the thing. I'm not going to be the guy that's like, I don't just love or hate Snyder's movies. I think there's a discussion to be had about each and every single one of them, because I'm not the guy that says something either is great or it sucks. I think there's a discussion to be had about every single one. I love Watchmen. I think Dawn of the Dead is a very, very impressive remake, especially for what it could have been. I haven't watched the Guardians of Ga'Hoole or 300 movies, but I know a decent amount of people who like both of those movies. It's just
300 with the Spartans and shit.
Yeah, that was him.
Oh,
that was the movie that made him. Okay, that was the movie that made him Zack Snyder. Yeah, the thing about Zack Snyder, and again,
time ago. Wow.
Yeah, okay. It's something that the internet has pretty much like known for a while now, which is that Zack Snyder, brilliant visual storyteller. The visuals in his movies. He knows how to spin visual storytelling in a way that no other filmmaker does, but the storytelling leaves a little bit to be desired. There's a reason why the majority of his more well-liked movies were not like, he was not involved heavily in the storytelling process, and he hasn't been involved directly in writing the script for everything, but you could definitely kind of tell where there's more of an influence from him with like some of the more direct comic book properties, because Snyder has constantly cited two major comics as like the inspiration of everything that he's ever done, which of course being Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns. And he basically made The Dark Knight Returns with Batman versus Superman, and I guess if we just kind of want to jump into this and kind of get going. So obviously this all started when Zack Snyder,
like, is it good or bad that like we're getting, like, why the outcry, like I was asking, your finger's been way more on the pulse than me. I thought it was a fine film. It wasn't the greatest film, but at the point that I saw Justice League, I knew what DC was doing, and I didn't expect anything less than what I got.
Yeah, the bar was pretty low. The bar was pretty low when Justice League came out. So
my TV world that didn't penetrate where we're sitting over here. Just at
least you admit now that you're finally engrossed in your own world. It explains for a lot of the things that you've said previously. So here's the kind of the whole origin story, if you will, to kind of speed through this. Christopher Nolan leaves Warner Brothers after Inception does $1 billion, and he can finally say, "Oh, I don't have to make superhero movies anymore. I'm Christopher goddamn Nolan. I can do whatever I want." Warner Brothers had already had a flop on their hands with Green Lantern. They're like, okay, we need to make things dark. They hire Zack Snyder to make Man of Steel. Man of Steel is what it is. So like, okay, you know what? Enough people. Yeah, so what? People didn't like the ending. It made enough money. Who cares? Next thing you know, he's basically hired to make, if Man of Steel is basically their version of Iron Man, because at that point they were like, okay, Man of Steel made money. Let's just do the MCU. They basically, to put this in perspective, the transition from Man of Steel to Batman versus Superman is basically the Marvel equivalent of hopping right from Iron Man right into Civil War. There's clearly a lot of pieces that are missing there. And say what you will about BVS, I think we can both agree BVS is not a good movie. There are pieces of it that work, and the visual style of that movie is incredible. I will give it that. But that movie is a heaping, steaming pile. That movie is all over the place. It makes no sense. For 2 hours, it is just long, meandering, and boring. I could give less of a crap about anything that most of the characters are doing in that movie. I know a lot of people love Ben Affleck's take on that movie. I personally thought that Ben Affleck was either A, given really terrible direction, or B, just grunting and farting most of his way through most of that movie, because I couldn't understand, like, people called Christian Bale incomprehensive. I couldn't understand most of what Ben Affleck was saying in that entire movie. It just felt like the biggest thing that pissed me off about BVS is, besides the fact of how many people were so into it, And besides the fact that was a movie that really actually could have been cool and could have worked and could have actually given Marvel a lot of competition and given Marvel a run for its money at a time when Marvel was just starting to begin its, ascent into just being unstoppable. But I was just so confused as to how all of how that movie could have gone. It just went so far in the opposite. Like, that was a movie that felt like every single cool thing that should have happened in that movie happened off screen. Like the Robin costume is there with like the paint on it. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but why is that here? What does that have to do with this movie? You have that entire middle sequence of the where Batman does Mad Max, right? And with evil Superman, and then he wakes up and he's got that Flash message with Flash traveling back in time, and I'm like, first off, I don't know what the hell is happening here. Second of all, what does this actually have to do with Batman like facing Superman? If anything, it's like, okay, if you're just continuing to allude to like the threat that Superman is, first of all, Superman's barely in the movie at that point. So why are you constantly building up that he's a threat and making it so one-sided? Like, it's just bad storytelling, right? And then you get to the actual fight, and the fight itself is cool. And then the movie, after being this super serious think piece about the implication and power that certain superheroes have, it pulls out Doomsday and does the Death of Superman arc out of nowhere. And I was just like,
yeah,
what? Like, no, again, like it so mind boggles me how people can defend that movie,
When we were really starting to become friends, I would defend this movie partly
to an unhealthy amount. It worried me.
Yeah, partly because I saw how fired up it got you, and I thought it was kind of a little funny to get you going.
I knew back then that you were a troll.
Yeah. I was definitely trolling a little bit, but also because back then where I was at, being a super TV nerd back then, could care less about I obviously love movies, man. Star Wars is my thing. You guys know that after the month we've had here on the channel. But point being, I was just kind of well, that was actually a really cool action sequence. So you got me. I liked it. I liked how we got there, and
that was all that it took for Chris to actually get into something.
But the reason I give that little bit of background info is because we're not here to talk about Batman versus Superman today, right? And if you're just joining us, thank you guys for watching. I see we got a couple of you, and we appreciate you being here. We know this was last minute. But the reason I kind of give my feelings on all of this is because it was just another DC movie. It didn't impress me too much. It wasn't the best thing, so I never understood the outcry for what we're talking about today, which is #release the Snyder Cut. And that's why I wanted to build that, because it just kind of seemed like, okay, people want it. But why do they want it?
And that's kind of my whole stance on it. So everybody was making such an outcry when the Batman versus Superman extended cut. Yes, Evan, there was a time when I didn't realize it. I was unself-aware of a lot of things for a very, very long point in my life. So I was the most confused that I was. Like I said, I pretty much had my thoughts on Batman versus Superman when that came out. I was confused after I first came out of that movie, but I figured out pretty quick that movie sucked. Mm-hmm. Then I saw that there was an extended cut coming out, and I was like, okay, sure, I'll watch it. But I don't understand what the point of this is. I'd already seen Civil War. I'd already, most people at that point with a rational brain, figured out, yeah, Civil War has its problem, but yeah, this is clearly a better movie than Batman versus Superman. And I watched the extended cut, and I'm like, was I supposed to get something new out of this? I'm not understanding. To me, it was just it was the same movie that I watched in theaters, but with a few extra deleted scenes added. I'm like, this added nothing to my overall experience. I was so confused. And so fast forward a year, right? Obviously, the whole behind the scenes thing with Snyder happens. Snyder leaving the project, Joss Whedon coming in to reshoot it, and we get Justice League. And I know a lot of people hated Justice League. Like I said, that's the thing, is that was at a point where DC just could not catch a break. Man of Steel was divisive. Batman vs. Superman was divisive. Suicide Squad was divisive. People just breathed heavily. Warner Brothers probably breathed heavily when Wonder Woman came out, and they were like, oh, thank God, a movie that people aren't complaining about. Thank God. Right. And then Justice League came out, and when I watched that movie, everybody hated it. I watched it, I was like, okay, I don't know about you guys, but compared to the last two just steaming piles of misery that I had to deal with, this is actually kind of fun,
Good,
not great. But I wasn't expecting anything great. That's my point. By that point, by November 2017, the bar had already been set so low.
You couldn't go any lower.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's
exactly.
Okay, so what? Joss Whedon, there's a Joss Whedon one-liner coming out of every other line of this very clearly, blatantly dark Whedon, Snyder reshoot. It's but who cares? I'm actually, for the first time in all of these stupid DC movies, actually having fun with this. Yeah, sure, Ben Affleck still looks bored. Yeah, Gal Gadot is basically.
Ben Affleck has never seemed more checked out to me.
Yeah, I agree. I know a lot of people defend him for Batman versus Superman, and I'm sorry. I didn't want to be that guy that hated the casting when it was first announced, but just after seeing 2 movies with it, I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't get the appeal. I really, really don't. I'm sure he was trying to give the best type of performance that he could, at least for Batman versus Superman. Justice League, it was very apparent that he was checked out. And yeah. So
what up, Joe? Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Yeah, we'll get to Ezra Miller. Okay?
We'll get to him.
We will get to Ezra Miller because
we've got a lot to
Joe, we know you got words to say about the Flash too.
But forget the Flash, just about Ezra Miller in general.
I mean, Evan likes the Flash, and that makes sense. If you know Evan, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'll just say this much. You know, I like the Flash as a character. I do not
me
like
too.
Ezra Miller's lifeless performance in the Flash. And also the costume design didn't help. But that's a different story. So we're kind of like saying how, you know, at the point that I went and saw Justice League and you went and saw Justice League, we were kind of just like, well, it's here and it's happening. And not as much of a me going into Fantasy Island where I could really care less. There was still a little bit of hope, but I didn't expect much, and I got what I expected.
Yeah.
So I never, well, of course, Barry Allen is the GOAT, man. I mean, the Flash TV show, that should be the Flash we get in the movies. But with that being said, like, so we're saying all this, Dom, and this to me, as much as I'm enjoying doing this episode, this doesn't seem like a hot take at all, because I think a lot of people are with us.
I agree.
The more hotter take is how I think that we both, it seems like you also don't understand this outcry for the Snyder.
I really don't. I really don't.
Quarantine? Do people need something to latch on to?
Well, that's definitely part of it.
I don't get it. I really don't.
That's definitely part of it, because everyone's in quarantine, so anything that seems like a remote hot take will just get people on edge and be like, oh my God. So. But here's the thing, is that if this was just a quarantine thing, that would have been one thing. The problem is that there's been this very vocal minority of the fan base that has been screaming for this goddamn thing for 3 years now. And the problem is that they acted like it was a secret movie that was like Warner Brothers was refusing to release. And I'm like, guys, that's not how movie making works. Zack Snyder did not just have this random cut of the movie that he just had lying around. It was just like, okay, I'm just going to F off of this movie now. Good luck. No, that's not how filmmaking works. Maybe he had like a few like previous shots with a couple of ADR things recorded for things that didn't make it into the movie. Sure, but that's on the cutting room floor of every single movie. Every single movie has cutting room takes. What this is, and let me explain it now for anybody who clearly doesn't understand this, what this is Warner Brothers needed something big to promote HBO Max, which will be released in a couple of weeks. And they needed a big hot button ticket in order to really maximize out on subscribers. And they said, hey, this is probably like still the most talked about thing, and this has gotten enough traction. Snyder, here you go. Here's $20 million. You pretty much already got the footage that you need, you know, go finish this movie, you know, because I'm pretty sure that the only thing, again, there was no assembled cut, but it was things that he just needed to finish the effects for. And obviously, you know, effects cost money, but like, you know, that's still a thing that feasibly people could work from home, you know, because you could still like do it in the computer, you know, as long as you've already got the shots that you need in order to use as the templates for the effect shots, you could still ideally do it. So yeah, in that sense, I guess it's a great marketing ploy. Like, this is, to me, again, like, it's another continued example of how the studios are continuing to use this constantly changing landscape and continuing to use the internet to their advantage when it comes to marketing their products. I give the studios all the credit in the world for that. Now, how it relates to cinema, that's a completely different story. But, yeah. Chris, kind of, what's your whole take on that?
Well, you know, to me, like, again, I quickly learned, because I got excited for, you know, Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel, and like the early, is it a DCU?
Yeah. When they clearly didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Like it was not at all like a Kevin Feige situation. Like, we've talked back and forth ad nauseum about our respective thoughts on the Marvelverse. That was just our previous episode. If you guys have a chance, go check it out on the YouTube channel. I thought it was a pretty good episode on the MCU.
Oh yeah, that was this week. That was this past week.
This past week.
Did an MCU episode. Yeah, that was.
Wow, I love how Chris already forgot about it. But
hey, man, I only look forward. But no, so my whole take on this whole thing, it's really like, I was really excited out the gates, because I back then was very much so a Marvel hater and also a huge DC defender. So I was like, great, now my team gets to show them how we play ball. Now we're up at bat. And those first few films, like I really tried defending like Batman versus Superman, partly to troll you, but partly because I just wanted to believe it could only get better. And then Justice League rolls over. Okay, then Suicide Squad comes around.
Squad, first and foremost.
And I'm like,
with that one, even you couldn't defend that movie.
I can't find
a single redeemable quality outside of Will Smith.
I can't find anything. Yeah, and that's why she got the Birds of Prey film, which if you want to know how we feel about that, how I feel about that, go check our review. It's up on the channel. That's a whole nother hot button topic. But I just, like, slowly and surely, the DC universe has just been trying to rip everything I love about them from my soul, and I'm hanging on because the comics are so damn good. And I even like those corny CW shows because why? They capture the essence of the characters, something I feel that, like, and these big players, Ezra Miller, you know, Batman, I forget, Ben Affleck. Like, these aren't like joke actors. These aren't like TV actors being given a first shot. So the fact that all these guys, like this cast, just like Wonder Woman clicked for me, and Aquaman clicked for me. But I mean, we've had 2 hits out of all the failures. Come on, man. So I never understood why people, it almost seems like we want more abuse as fans of DC. Hashtag release the Snyder cut. Let us down again is what that tells me, right? Release the Snyder cut. Those are 4 words. Release the Snyder cut. Those are 3 words. Let us down. 3 words. It seems like you could just swap those out. And
release
you just
the Snyder cut is 4 words. Release the Snyder cut.
Dude, basically all I'm saying is, like, yeah, that was dumb, and whatever, we're live and that was dumb. But I don't care, because I also don't care about the Snyder cut.
Yeah, thank you. That's like, basically just admits it. My whole thing is
man.
I'm so confused as to why of all the directors that get alternative cuts, because this is not the first time that we've gotten this is not the first time that we've gotten a directorial debut. You know, we've got so many different cuts of movies. You know, Apocalypse Now, another DC movie, Superman 2. There are 2 versions of that movie. There's the Richard Lester theatrical version and the Richard Donner version that was released in 2006. Like, there's been so many different alternative cuts to movies. Thank you, Evan. At the very least, use the common sense. But like Zack Snyder, like, what does this man do? Chris, can you explain to me? Can you help me understand what it is that this man does to get so many different cuts of his movies? Watchmen has 3 cuts. 3 different versions of Watchmen exist. And I love that movie and I will defend it, but like, come on. Like, that movie was I don't remember how that movie did in theaters when I watched it, because I was only 12 when that movie came out, but like, come on. And then there's 2 different versions of Batman versus Superman. And now he's getting a 4-hour extended version of the thing that ultimately was the precursor for Solo and Dark Phoenix. Like, what does this guy do? Can you explain to me? Like, I could give less of a crap about another alternate version of Justice League. Let's put it this way. DC's equivalent of the Avengers was, to me, the equivalent of, like, I don't know, like a 90s version of the Avengers, you know, that spy movie with like Sean Connery that got remade with Ray Fiennes. Like, what does this man do? Help me understand what it is that this guy does to keep getting these alternative versions of his cuts of movies.
So you know how Hollywood is. It's all about who you know and keeping up connections and schmoozing, and he's got to be amazing with that. He's got to have a way with words, because at this point, how do you get that many like second chances, third chances?
I don't know. Like, nobody else has that. Not as many as this guy has.
Because here's the thing, man. Like, I listen to a few podcasts that kind of like interview like casting directors and like actors and directors and whatnot, and like, they all talk about how much like they love getting like a basket of this or like a gift from so and so. He must have like 4 secretaries that like send everyone like, hey man, look, I know I haven't spoken to Steven Spielberg in a long time, but you just every Christmas you got to send him something. He's got to remember me. He must know how to schmooze better than anyone in the industry, man, because I do not know how you get this many chances. And you were talking about some of his earlier releases, and I hadn't realized I saw 300, but that's a fine film. I really enjoy that film.
I've never seen it, but
incredible. But like, I remember I was at the perfect age. I was like a high school kid, high school boy. And that movie came out. It was violent. It was gory. It was everything we needed. And like, cool. He was kind of setting himself up with the success of that film, because it was a big success to like do cool stuff. But I don't know if like, you know, 15, 20, almost 20 years later, whenever that was, I don't know if it warrants you all these chances, because all this Snyder cut is going to do for me, if it's good, is make me be like, okay, well, it took 4 hours to make a good film out of this nonsense. But if it's bad, okay, if it's bad, I know we might have to cover it for the show, but
we're gonna have to cover. The one thing
I will
I'll say,
begrudgingly grind my teeth down to the bone, to the finest little pieces of dust watching all these other DC films, because I am a DC fan and I'm just going to be fed up if this sucks. If I'm going to have to sit there for 4 hours to realize, hey, this movie actually was not just bad, but one of the worst hot pieces of garbage ever, and now you gave me an extra, I don't even know, hour plus of it. It's probably 2 hours plus.
Chris,
I'm just going to be PO'd, all right, to keep it a little censored.
To put this in perspective, I haven't watched a 4-hour-long movie since Sergio Leone's final movie, Once Upon a Time in America, starring Robert De Niro and James Woods, released in 1984. The final cut of that movie that I saw reaches about 4.5 hours long of that movie. That's the last 4.5 hour movie I've seen. Well, Joe, I love you, but please stop making excuses for Snyder. Please stop making excuses for this guy.
And Joe, like, listen, man, we appreciate you being here, but I do have to say this, okay? We know it's not his movie that he saw, but like so much of these characters, like we had seen Ben Affleck before this film, right? We had seen a few of the other actors before this film, and they just weren't working. So like
the only thing that Zack Snyder did was set up their aesthetic. The reason why we love those characters is not because of Snyder, it's because we saw them in other better movies. We love Wonder Woman because of Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman. We love Aquaman because of James Wan's Aquaman. You know, The Flash, Cyborg, all those guys, say what you will about them, whatever. You can like him, you can not, but I'm understanding it. We want to see it, and I get it. But that's my point. That's my point. Why? Why do we want to see his original vision? What is
I don't understand it, because
original vision?
Here's the way I see it, right? You could make the most visually appealing cake, but if you have sourdough, if you have terrible ingredients, if you use low quality in your mix, all you're doing is taking 3 hours to make a cake that's going to taste like garbage. And the pieces that he has to recreate this film, I mean, you're still working with like bottom of the barrel.
Elliot, what's up, dude?
Dude, we appreciate it. Looking forward to tomorrow, man. Elliot, if you're still here right now, let us know. Like, do you think that Snyder can save this film? Because I think he has nothing to work with.
Don't know. I really don't think he can, because like the one thing here's the one thing that I'm gonna say about this, first and foremost, about just my personal thought on this, is that at the very least, looking back on Justice League was fun in the moment, but I also rewatched the nostalgia critic review of that movie, and upon rewatch, that's definitely a situation where I can tell you, okay, if I rewatch this movie, I would probably be like, yeah, whatever. It would probably be the equivalent of my Solo watch. Solo, I watched it in theaters. I was like, okay, this was fun. We rewatched it a couple weeks ago for the podcast. I'm like, okay, why did I like this movie when I saw it? This movie offers me nothing. I have a feeling it would be the same thing if I rewatched Justice League. But with this movie, what I will say is that regardless of how bad it could be, okay, I get that. But the point being is that what did we get from Aquaman in Justice League that was actually interesting? To me, I personally didn't start liking Aquaman until James Wan's Aquaman. But that's beside the point. What I'm saying is that at the very least, if what Snyder actually makes is more interesting than what we got in theaters, right? Because I think that a lot of people can agree that what we got in theaters was very safe. It was very played down. It was very standard. It was very by the book, with the exception of a grave digging sequence that was a little bit confusing. For the most part, that movie was a very safe movie. Now, Chris, just to put that in perspective, let me list off just a few of the things that we're going to get included in Zack Snyder's original cut of Justice League. And maybe this will back up some of Joe's points about him getting to make his original movie.
Sure.
Superman was originally going to be resurrected by Darkseid and be brought back as the black-suited Superman with the mullet and everything. Good God, Zack Snyder actually getting to control a character with a mullet. God only knows, but whatever. Darkseid was actually going to make an appearance at the end of the movie once they defeated Steppenwolf. Cyborg was originally supposed to have a much bigger part. There was going to be a Green Lantern that popped up in the movie. In part 2, because that was back when it was supposed to be Justice League parts 1 and 2. Part 2, they were actually going to go to Apokolips in order to like rescue Superman, and that was going to lead to like the Earth being conquered, lead to the Mad Max vision that was set up in Batman vs Superman. And I know that movie, Batman was supposed to die. The Harry Lennox character, I don't remember what his name is, like General Swanson or something like that. He was going to be revealed to be Martian Manhunter in disguise.
Okay.
All of that stuff was going to be in this movie. There was a lot more flashback sequences. I know a couple characters were cut. Like Kiersey Clemens was supposed to be in the movie as Iris West. That got cut. It was in a flashback sequence. There was also going to be a flashback sequence showing how Cyborg actually, became Cyborg. There was a lot of stuff. And all that stuff sounds cool in concept.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say that.
The problem is that all that stuff I thought was going to be super cool when he was talking about the press for Batman versus Superman. And then I actually saw the trailer. And besides the fact that that second trailer basically told me the entire goddamn movie in that one trailer, I was just like, ugh, really? All this cool, awesome DC stuff that I loved in the comics, and this is what it's going to look like? So this is what it's going to be?
I couldn't agree more. Now the chat's kind of going off. So we asked that we're going to start with Elliot. We're going to go down the ropes, and maybe this will.
Yeah.
I don't
start rolling up the comments. I want to hear what some people have to say about this.
So we asked Elliot what his take was on it, and if you guys don't know, Elliot runs an awesome channel called Movie Files. Go check it out for some hot takes. Elliot says, "I've always looked."
Elliot's got a hot take to say the least.
Yeah. He said, "I've always looked at Zach as an acquired taste. He's spicy food, and some like spicy food and others don't." That makes sense.
That just reminded me of one of the funniest Dave Chappelle sketches I've heard recently, but keep going.
I love spicy food, but I guess I just don't like Zach's cooking. Is how
I like it. I like it at certain points.
Evan agrees with Elliot.
Yep.
That's fine. He's entitled to agree. I disagree, but Evan agrees. That's what Evan was trying to get out earlier. Okay, so I can see where some people are coming from. We have a new face hanging right now. We got
Dustin.
Mr. G.
Dustin, what's up, dude? Thanks for tuning in.
So, Don, you want to read your comment here?
Yeah, Dustin, Mr. G Movie Review said, we all know that the Justice League movie that we saw was essentially a mashup of two different styles. At least Snyder's cut was probably more cohesive. Sure, but the argument that I'd say is look at Batman versus Superman. I'm sorry, Batman versus Superman was not a cohesive movie. I'm sorry, it wasn't. Sure, it looked more visually similar than Justice League did, but I still argue that Batman versus Superman is way more incohesive than anything we got in Justice League.
Yeah, and that's not saying much. Like, Justice League is still just as much of like just a terrible sort of show thing going on where you get told you're being a little too loud.
Just keep going. Just keep going. This is a live show, dude. Come on.
He said in the live stream where he announced, I just think it's funny. He said in the live stream where he announced the Snyder cut that there was no way he would have done the mullet.
Bullshit.
Okay, so
bullshit. Calling it right now.
We're like going to be sitting through 4 hours for to get these kind of changes,
right?
Because
that's what I mean.
That doesn't get me.
Not in the
too
least.
excited. I mean, I don't know. Like, so you guys who are kind of saying Snyder's an acquired taste, like, let us know if you're still with us, and if you are, we appreciate you being here. Why are you excited though? So you guys are kind of like saying,
I gotta know
about Snyder, but we're not excited because, like we said, the cake's gonna taste bad if the ingredients are sour and terrible, and that's what we have, in my opinion, with this Justice League. Could look as visually stunning on the outside as you want, but the second you cut into it and bite it, you're gonna spit that thing right out because it tastes bad. And let us know wwhy you guys think it's good, or if you do, because I don't get it.
And the other thing that I wanted to touch on is, besides obviously the business standpoint and everything, like I said, just all of our things with Snyder is just from within the world itself, like from the cinematic storytelling standpoint, because we're already at a point now where we're getting like more movies past Justice League that clearly are leaving the original continuity of DC behind. We're getting another Wonder Woman sequel that is already retconning everything that was established by the previous verse. We're getting another Aquaman sequel. We're getting a Shazam sequel. We've already gotten a Birds of Prey and a Joker movie that is not at all associated with this current verse. We're getting a Black Adam sequel. We've already gotten a recasted Batman. We're getting a completely retcon Suicide Squad movie. We're getting all these different movies that so clearly leave that original continuity behind. So like, what is this establishing? Is this establishing like basically an Elseworlds, and they're basically just saying, okay, there is no continuity. We're just basically doing whatever. But like, I'm so confused about it, and where this is going to go going forward.
To me, we all know that like the corporate people, they got upset because Marvel was raking in all this cash, and everyone said it. They haven't. I don't know if they've come out and confirmed it, but I mean, I think anyone with eyes and ears can sort of say, yeah, they rushed in way too soon. They wanted to create this MCU, and they jumped into the big team-up films way too soon. They didn't properly establish the characters. There wasn't that through line that Marvel has, for better or for worse. Marvel at least had a cohesive vision. So yeah, they obviously are trying to retcon things. Now, that's not to say, though, like, I don't want to come off as too much of haters right now, because like, I really enjoyed Shazam. I thought that was a good film.
I like Shazam.
I don't know why they're retconning it already, the first Wonder Woman, but they are. But maybe they're on the right track now. But they're always going to be playing catch up. And to me, this feels like a backtrack when they were kind of just starting to get on the right track, in my opinion.
I agree.
With Wonder Woman being such a strong film, with Aquaman being a really good film. I enjoyed it. I like Momoa as Aquaman. And also, I'm forgetting one. I'm forgetting a
Birds of Prey?
Yeah, the Harley Quinn movie, like
Birds of
people
Prey.
seem to have, yeah, if they saw it, they seem to have liked it. I mean, if they saw it,
I
right?
liked
That's the
it.
thing.
It's my favorite one so far out of these ones.
It's at least the direction was clear. Like it didn't resonate with me as much of like as a film, but at least it felt cohesive. At least it felt like a complete thought.
Yep.
So I just think like they got to learn from this, and they're just finally getting like the smallest bit of wind under their sails. So why are we taking this giant step backwards? We're just living in the past. You guys need to. This is how I see it. So I'm kind of learning as we do this, as we always do, Dom. That like the reason why I kind of like think it's kind of dumb and like from the start wasn't too about it is because like don't look back. You guys made those mistakes. You guys have a chance to right this ship though. Why are we living in the past? I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
Elliot here says he loved Man of Steel and he's not a fan of the Ultimate
Fur of BVS.
I'm not. I'm looking forward to seeing a creator's full version versus what we got in 2017.
Me too. That's one thing I will say is that regardless of how it turns out quality wise, I am interested to see what it looks like. And at the very least, I'm hoping that unlike Batman versus Superman, we actually get something different than what we got in theaters. That's what I'll say.
Yep. Exactly. One was reading Mr. G's comment and one was me just agreeing with you, man. So I don't know. I mean, it's look, we're just the commentators. We're just talking about it online, right? Which is it's a Friday night and we're just having some fun right now. But we love these characters and we love this franchise, and I love these characters more than I love Marvel characters. So for me, it really pains me being a DC guy to just see these characters getting dragged through the mud again and again and again. And I do agree with what you just said.
They deserve better.
But yeah, they deserve better. And,
they really
not
do.
that I don't agree with what you just said, but I kind of think like with this recasting of Pattinson as Batman, that gets me excited. Like I was just
saying, especially with
those,
Matt Reeves directing.
Yeah, those few films that worked, I think they worked, and I think Shazam really worked.
Yep.
And so like
James Gunn's Suicide Squad has me more excited than a lot of the other DC stuff that's going on.
Yeah, exactly, because it seems like that could be good. It's like they're saying all the right things so far, and so I just like. Is HBO Max desperate? Are they
just need something? They just
the DC universe.
Okay,
like a step
keep this in mind. Yeah. HBO Max does not give a flying F about the DC universe and whatever. They need a hot button topic that's going to get as many subscribers and eyes towards their product so they can compete with Netflix. They don't give a crap about the DC universe or anything. They need a hot button topic that'll get people to subscribe to HBO Max, and that's exactly what this is going to be. We've already established that. We know what that is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's such a bummer that the DC universe, I mean, I'm okay with speculating a little bit because I'm a little fired up right now. I think it's going to suffer because, like I said, I don't even think like the greatest director in the world could save what he was given in this situation, because there's not much to work with, man. And why are we taking this?
My take on it before we wrap it up is the DC universe kind of already screwed itself. I think any chance of ever competing with Marvel or actually establishing any cohesion in any way went out the door a long time ago. And like I said, I'm interested to see with anything. Dustin 1000% agree. 1000% agree. Between that, the Reeves Batman and the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie, I'm more excited about those two than any other DC project we've heard since 2013. And yeah, like I said, I just want to see where they go from here. If nothing else, just to see what they do, you know, because if there's one thing that I can definitely say that DC has done to differentiate themselves from Marvel before we wrap it up, is that DC has shown that because they have no track record, no plan, no cohesion, and the bar is already set so low, our expectations are so low when we go into any DC movie now, we're just like, okay, whatever they do, yeah, you know,
can't be worse than what we got.
Can't be worse than what we got. Like Marvel, we know exactly what we're gonna get when we go into a Marvel movie. For better, for worse, we know exactly what we're gonna get. I had no idea what I was getting when I went into Harley Quinn earlier this year. And I think that's part of the reason why I enjoyed that movie so much. You know? Yeah.
There's good and bad things on that end. I know when I'm going to see a Marvel film, however, that there is a bar of quality established for the ticket price that I pay to go and see it.
Yep.
And these movies aren't free, so you want to... It's a safe bet going to see a Marvel film. And I can understand that is also kind of a part for the consumer aspect of our brains. Even if we like something, the consumer aspect never gets shut off, because we live in a world where money talks, you know?
Exactly.
And you can spend it way easier than you can make it. So where you spend it on, that counts. And so I think, you know, like these DC films, them being such a crapshoot, is kind of a risk sometimes. And so the only thing I can say is that this Snyder Cut is smart to be on a streaming service, because I don't think DC could afford A, to take this step back in the box offices, but B, if this thing failed in the box offices, forget this universe you're trying to retcon.
Well, think about it this way also. What theater was going to play another version of Justice League? That movie was already a huge bomb.
But but the thing is, there's such an outcry. Like, we're against it right now. Clearly, this hashtag release the Snyder Cut.
I'm not going to say against it. I'd say passive towards it is what I'd say.
Okay, for me, I think I'm a little against it just because I really care about these characters, and like I've said 1,000 times in this episode, I think it's going to be a setback, a huge one if it fails. And but like, I think there's such a strong outcry for this that like it could have went to some theaters if the fan base pushed it hard enough. I think we've seen crazier things happen, and so I'm glad that that's not happening. But I still think this is a terrible decision for the sake of these characters in this universe, because there is some good. There is some diamonds in the rough here, but there's a lot more rough. What does Elliot say here before we wrap this thing up? He's interested to see if Warner Brothers will make this a norm, director's cuts being exclusive to HBO Max.
Definitely something interesting to look at, Elliot, for going forward. Thank you for actually bringing that up. I was going to bring that up. Is that, will this be the norm now for everything? Directors screw up in theaters. Okay, they get a second shot at HBO Max. At that point, I just say, what's the point of even going to theaters then? If you could just get whatever carte blanche and just go right to the streaming service, get twice as many views at home. What's the point of even going to the theaters then?
Yeah, let me say this, because that's a really dumb. Well said, my friend. It's kind of that thing where, do you want to pay for something when you know you could get a more refined version on a streaming service afterwards? If that becomes a norm, this struggling theater industry, I think, already has to tighten their belt even further than they can. And I don't know how many notches are left for them to go. And the theaters
are already having to tighten because of the corona, right? Keeping that constantly at the forefront of our minds.
I mean, no one's going to try with Tenet, and we will see how that goes.
Yep.
Nothing is guaranteed.
Tenet right now is going to be the deciding factor between whether theaters survive or not. I'm telling you right now. Yeah. Tenet will be that deciding factor.
And I think that if that becomes a norm, it couldn't be any more detrimental, because me as a consumer, right, my consumer brain, like I said, money doesn't grow on trees. I need to make my decisions wisely, because I'm just a young kid trying to get off the ground, right? We all are at this point, me and you, Dom. And like, if I know that they're just going to put a version that is more refined or more true to the original direction online, why do I even want to see this?
Why do we even need to go to the theater? Like I said, I've talked adamantly about how I understand where Scorsese and Spielberg and all these guys who have talked about the theatrical experience are coming from. But even I'll have to admit, it's like, as much as I would hate to see the theaters go away, because they are become such a fundamental part of my existence in general, I understand from a business sense why they would. Because just you when it comes to the economics and the convenience, it's like they can't compare. It's just too many factors that they just cannot are incapable of competing against.
So Joe says he had to leave for a second, but he's back, and he said he wasn't making any excuses. But yes, we know Snyder's daughter died. His daughter.
It was very unfortunate, and
so I can see why this is a little bit of a redemption for him. But I think a man of his, because I have liked a few of his films, a man of his talents, I don't even know if he's able to save this this kind of pitiful.
It's kind of out of his hands at this point. It really is. And I think that anybody who has loved his movies, I'm glad that you enjoy them for what they are. I personally don't think that they're very strong movies. And I'm sorry, but like, to me at least, it feels like you're like somebody making excuses for just enjoying bad movies. I'll make excuses for bad movies. I will defend almost every single one of Michael Bay's Transformers movies. But I still understand that they are bad movies.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get it. This must be super personal for him. I could never imagine that situation. That sounds horrible. My heart goes out to him, of course, right? I mean, that's terrible. But, and I guess that's kind of like he wants to finish this for, personal reasons, which is fine. And I'm obviously going to watch this film, so I will be supporting the film by watching it. But I think as a whole for the DC universe, like, I've been corporate Chris on this conversation, like kind of thinking about it like as a consumer standpoint, for like the sake of the franchise. It just doesn't seem like a good decision for any parties involved, really.
It really doesn't.
For his like, career, like his first thing in a little while. Like, I don't know. Let's see what Elliot says here before we wrap this up. Warner Brothers makes some wild moves. Yeah, okay, that's true. But I'll give them some props for being risky and trying new things. Joker 2019, Justice League on HBO Max, Matt Reeves, Batman, J Gun, Suicide Squad. You can't say they're normal. Okay,
you're
yeah,
right,
no,
Elliot. You're right, Elliot. But to that, I will counter with 20th Century Fox, because to me, sure, as ambitious as Warner Brothers got with their alternative superhero movies, I still think Fox blew them out of the water, because Fox still had Deadpool a month before BBS and a few months before Civil War, and then they had Logan, and then they were going to try and do, and then they had, and before the Disney merger, and then they were going to do New Mutants. New Mutants aside, the point being, to me, Fox is still the studio that like took the most risks when it came to like these kind of more mature, big budget, like, you know, pop culture fanfare films.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to look at it, man. I don't know, dude. I think I've said all I can really say on this matter.
Same thing.
I'm just gonna go through Evan's last few comments here, because he's been the ride or die on this one from beginning to end, and we appreciate all you guys hanging out with us, man. We actually got up to a decent amount of viewers. I know this was last minute, this was impromptu. Dom and I kind of loosely spoke about like, well, if we have the free time and news like this comes around, we enjoy doing it. There'll probably be more of these, and they'll probably be just as last minute. But I mean, I guess that's kind of the thing about our channel. We have our set schedule, right? We post the weekly schedule every Monday, as you saw this past Monday on Instagram. And that's something we're going to continue, because we believe we're working really hard, first of all. And we believe in keeping you guys in the loop as to what we're up to, because we want you to see it. I mean, we just put up an episode today. Dom did an incredible job on his top 10 lightsaber fights, and that episode's going awesome. And we want to let you guys know about more cool stuff like that. But every now and then there will be kind of like breaking, is like this segment, right? Breaking news stories in the film world. Something that's like, because usually when breaking news happens, it's like something terrible, right? Or something political that just either annoys you or makes you really happy. So I kind of like the idea that we're kind of like giving the breaking thing more of a fun approach, because we're getting a little serious here, but like it's about something we love. It's about movies and TV, and everyone in the chat right now, they love it too. That's why they're here. So expect these from time to time. But we don't know when they'll be, right? We need to be given news to do these segments.
Yes, so we do. And we finally had something that, but that's the other thing too that I want to differentiate, is we weren't just reacting for the sake of like, oh, this is cool. We were actually talking about it, because I felt like I told Chris this last night when I called him. I was like, Chris, this is something that we can actually talk about, because to me, at least, this impacts the future of the industry, and this impacts just cinema in general. So
this is a big deal, and I'm glad that like we kind of brought it there, and Elliot certainly chimed in and gave his opinion on it, because it could definitely change the game. We all know, like we just did that AMC versus Universal pod on Flix Talks channel a few weeks back, and dude, the theater industry is not doing well. So really like we didn't do Tiger King, guys, because it didn't mean anything to us. That was something we could have easily hit. It was a hot button topic, but we were like, this just doesn't resonate with us.
I'm sorry, I don't care about embellishing white trash icons who torture animals for fun. Not gonna do it.
Exactly. Like I think they know that we only do things that mean stuff to us, but like that's kind of like why we did this tonight, where we're coming from. But let's hit these last few comments and kind of tell them what we got going on tomorrow, Dom, and where they can find us for next week. Right,
what are those?
So yeah, Evan's like, he's talking about his daughter dying, which obviously sucks, and he had to leave production. And I'm sure if I was a creative and I had to leave like making an album and leave it up to my bandmates, they could do a bang up job, but I would still wish that I could get my mark on it. And I can see that. I understand it. But I mean, I just think it's just like there wasn't much to work with there. And I feel bad
for this next comment for Evan, to respond to that, I wouldn't say safe choice. I would say obvious choice, because it was so beyond obvious that they were trying to rip off his stuff. And that's for Suicide Squad, only from the guy who directed Street Kings and Sabotage and End of Watch and Fury. Like those two visions just don't go together. So it would make sense to actually have the guy who directed Suicide Squad, who at the time had just been fired by Marvel, to direct their next movie. You know, like that just makes sense to me, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. So Dom, with that being said, do we want to kind of wrap this thing up?
Let's wrap it up, dude.
Elliot kind of gave us the perfect segment here. He's excited for tomorrow. We're talking about the most beautiful non-toxic fandom of Star Wars. Yeah, that's one
right,
way.
Tomorrow, 3 p.m. sharp Eastern Standard Time. Myself, Chris, Elliot, bunch of other guys that Chris will tell you about are getting together, and we're doing to wrap up Star Wars month. We're doing our first official Star Wars panel to talk about this magical franchise and kind of help you guys understand and maybe break down what it is that is so special about this franchise to so many people. And it's going to be live tomorrow on YouTube, again, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this channel, the Talkin TV channel. It'll be available for the podcast when we put it up the following Wednesday, the 27th. But we hope to see you guys there. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of Star Wars talk. It's going to be minimum 2 hours. Maybe it'll be 4 hours long like the Snyder Cut. I don't know. You guys just have to tune in order to see.
Yeah, no, Elliot, don't get nervous, man. I know you got another watch to go to afterwards. I think we'll be able to keep it to like about 2 hours. But if you guys can't make it, 3 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube channel, the replay will be up. So don't worry. Just come in and catch it. Obviously, your opinions won't be heard if you're not in the chat, but that's all right. You can just leave a comment and we're always down to talk Star Wars. The thing Dom and I kind of always say behind closed doors is Star Wars is very good to us. And we want to be as good to Star Wars as we can. So if you guys don't know, we just finished a month-long May the 4th celebration on our YouTube channel, because if there's one thing Dom and I can sort of like get behind, even though we differ on, we have different opinions on certain aspects of it, we both love Star Wars. So it just kind of felt right to dedicate Star Wars month to the channel on May, because May the 4th, man, and then Revenge of the 5th as well. You know, we had some fun posts there on Instagram and all that. But yeah, like we put out something while we're on the token of Star Wars today. Dom, you just poured your heart into something that I thought was incredible. You want to tell them about the video we just dropped earlier today real quick?
That's right, people. I officially put out my top 10 Star Wars lightsaber fights. It is on the channel right now. If you guys haven't checked it out, I would definitely recommend it. It was a very exhausting edit, but I had a lot of fun making it. It was a video that I've been wanting to make for a long time, and I finally finished Clone Wars, and I finally see enough of Rebels to be like, okay, I can do this. And I was like, yeah, these are the best fights that have ever come out of this magical franchise. So if you guys get a chance, if you haven't watched it already, definitely go over, check it out. I'm very proud of it. I had a lot of fun making it. I just hope you guys have as much fun watching it.
Yeah, Dom's top 10 lightsaber fights is up on our channel right now. We're posting every Monday through Saturday, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. Same things going on this week. Check every Monday morning on our Instagram for the schedule. We're letting you guys know what we're up to, and we appreciate you guys being here, because like we're having a lot of fun with this. We're also like working really hard at this thing. If I could just be a little sort of open and honest and maybe off book right now. So we appreciate you guys. The fact that some of you guys were here the whole time. The fact that any of you guys were here on our brand new channel. We've only been at this thing for 7 weeks. Just going live out of nowhere, not even promoting it informally, and having people chat with us. It's a dream come true. Like some people never even get this far, and I know Dom's thankful. I am very honestly, I'm thankful you guys were here hanging out with us. And if you guys enjoyed this video and you want us to do more of this type of stuff, what will help us is if you throw it a like, because that kind of helps with the algorithm and all that. And, you know, the bigger and better this thing gets, the more we can do for you. And, you know, we enjoy doing this for you as much as we enjoy doing it for ourselves. There is a little selfishness there. We haven't been shy in saying that in the past. We also enjoy hanging out with you guys. And if you can, and it's not too much to ask, we'd appreciate a subscribe, because we're trying to grow this channel, man. We're pouring our heart and soul into it every day.
Comments, so. Lots and lots of comments, feedback, people. We need feedback. You want us to improve. You want us to get better. You want us to keep churning out awesome, entertaining content. Feedback. That is the key. We need it. We need it in order to form our community. We need it in order to continue to get new ideas. We need it. So
that's actually a really good point. People don't speak about the constructive criticism. Yeah. Evan said, okay, end of watch was amazing, though. And with that being said, Evan, I think we have to end this video. Dom, I didn't mean to scum out there. But Evan and I go, we don't go way back, but we have a.
Just stop talking, Chris. Just stop talking. Stop talking right now, people.
So yeah,
follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram at Talkin TV. Leave us a like. Leave us a subscribe. It would be very, very helpful. And yeah, Chris, can I say my thing now?
Dom, I would love for you to say your thing.
All right, Elliot, thank you for staying with us the whole night. This was awesome. And people, watch more fucking movies. We out.
We out. Have a good night, everyone.